Well, good morning, everybody. Have I got updates for you? And AI's all updated too. Canadian Food Inspection Agency releases a whole bunch of data again, the original data that I had. And here's the problem on this ostrich farm, the lab farm, that goes right back to 2021. And now we can analyze that with AI. There are a pile of records that the Canadian Food and Inspection Agency, under everybody, biological security restrictions, is holding that data. They admit they have it. They're not releasing it unless you file a specific biosecurity form. It was public up until probably after the call, sometime after that November 5th to 7th. I don't know exactly when because I hadn't looked at it. But I published in September. All of that is there, publications and all. As of last night, when you looked at it before I did the video, you couldn't get any of that from AI. They had no records of anything about the birds, as though the birds were born on the farm. And of course, that's just not reality. Every agricultural worker in poultry knows this, let alone labs. When you get into lab work, it goes off the charts, right? Lots of restrictions, lots of governmental compliance has to happen. In Canada, China, Japan, there's a problem with this April 2021 all the way up till November 2021 on coronavirus injections of these birds to produce antigens and then raise those 10 hens that had all these eggs. They took a good portion of them and raised those birds to adulthood and were breeding them too. They've been shipped to Japan. I've got all the records returned and opened. And also, does everybody notice? Why is my video not cutting out? Right? Because now all the data's back, at least what they consider to be important data. The rest they're holding for themselves. And you have to file specific biosecurity reports and reasoning why you need that information, which used to be public. But I'm going to put it together for you. I did a lot of work on this over the last 6 months, really, as this became crazy and I didn't like it because it was easy for me to find the data, trace the birds, and I didn't like what I was seeing. It hit me hard, Wuhan, China bats, and those 28 diseases found within the animal populations all around it. Folks, the problem here is these lab birds, they say, are not part of the environment. They're kept isolated. When they did the COVID-19 and created these antigen-raised birds, whatever you want to think, it was human coronavirus entered into the birds and said, oh, don't worry, it's a dead injection, no problem. Okay, that's one science experiment. But then you moved on with the same genetically altered birds, born and raised genetically altered, with human injections of a disease in humans version to change those birds genetically, the born birds, not the hens that were injected, their offspring, which they raised on that farm to adulthood, sold some of them to Japan to be crossbred. Those records are there. It's all restored this morning. And again, my video's not getting screened. But in comes the H5N1 bird flu virus. What effects did that virus have and possible mutations from human coronavirus injected birds, regardless, that were raised? These are the offspring birds from the first experiment. What effects did H5N1 bird flu have on those birds? Guess what the answer is? I don't know. Nobody did the testing or to see the effects. This is the cover-up. This is exactly what China's accused with 28 diseased bats, 28 diseases. human diseases, bats, including COVID-19 and that creation. What other things were done? It's just like this lab and what they were doing and what they're doing in genetic experimentation with human diseases in animals. What are the effects? What are the effects of the bird flu? What does that do to the birds? What's the risk to human beings? Using human viruses, dead or other. That's not the point. You do one test, one lab experiment. You don't raise that experiment and start the process of bringing in more and more diseases into that population, especially when you've been manipulating a human disease. See the problem here, everybody? And you can ask Rock, and that's really what they don't want coming out. It's what America, I believe, wanted to know by having those birds in the States in a controlled environment and see what other things Canada had done to those birds. Those birds are right back to what I told you. A good chunk of that flock was shipped from Ontario, Winnipeg, and on with the Wuhan lab. I would like to know all of that, wouldn't you? Shouldn't we all know? Supposed public access. But here's the thing. Nobody was doing any animal testing in Canada, claimed by Canada, all through the government, until post-December 2021. So what were they doing in these experiments on that virus from April of 2021 to November of 2021? Why were they already doing that when Canada hadn't rolled out any animal testing or system in that? And the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, sure, that's food, but they are doing bio experiments to create vaccines using human diseases in these animals to see what's produced in antigens. Why were they doing those experiments so much before Canada even started that? The government of Canada rolled out anything like that. So why were they doing it? What else has been done outside of government eyes, government control, and government laws interprovincially? And we see all the interprovincial breeding too. You can trace all that. It's back this morning. Think about it, folks. Think about it. You don't find these things in the United States and lots of other free countries in the world. They don't do these kind of things regionally in the type of federalism Canada is, where at the provincial level they're making choices that are absolutely restricted in international law and restricted in every country in the world. You're not to do it. But somehow interprovincially they're bypassing this in Canada and they're doing it. And then other countries are using certain provinces to get away with this stuff. That's just Japan and Canada. What about Canada and China? What about those eastern birds? What happened with the Wuhan to Winnipeg lab? And what interactions with ostriches? That's what I want to know. That's what's being held right now. And you got to go file a form to find out. And of course, they're going to look at you and say, who are you? Oh, you're a guy from Alberta who is a welder. What do you need those records? We're not going to give them to you. That's my guess. I mean, I could file the forms and find out. Unfortunately, that this stuff was available before the call. Now all of a sudden, magically, it isn't. Court records released, but they have it. They've locked it down. Somewhere in these last hours since part one, all that's been updated. Now AI answers all your questions. You can get traceability of the birds. Limited, though. And even AI will tell you there's not much we know about the birds before 2021. Why is that? Oh yeah, because of the Wuhan bats and what China Wuhan to Winnipeg Wuhan. What is the full history of these birds? Easily tracked, as everyone knows. These were lab experimented birds under biosecurity. Those records are there. We want to know 2021 and everything before, especially in and around 2018 to 2021. Shouldn't all Canadians know what those birds were through? What other experiments were done on them? We're never really going to know. None of those tests were done. The birds were called, exterminated. They're finished. They're gone. All evidence burned. So there's no autopsies for any of us or anybody. And that should really alarm people. AI says all these conspiracies, but realistically, what we're talking about is the origins of coronavirus and countries experimenting, especially with animal testing of human viruses in animal populations in a lab setting, and then that being released out to communities. Just like H5N1, they claim infected and killed all those birds, a mass population of them. Well, why wouldn't they do the test and see what effects H5N1 were from those human antigen created birds of coronavirus? What effects did that have on the virus? Oh, we don't want to do any of those tests. Because that's what America probably would have been doing had they gotten the birds, and then they would have been comparing that to the Chinese bats and start determining, hey, was Canada messing around with China, creating COVID-19? Is that what's going on here? Biological warfare? Now, I can't prove it, folks. Like I said, I need all of that data that you're going to find when you do a search now. Sure, you get to see where the birds come from, crossbreeding, who they were sold to. Yes, they came from the East, but there are limited to no records of 2021 and prior, which is critical, especially when we're dealing with animals injected with human coronavirus to see the effects of antigens produced in the egg yolks, and then they raised to adulthood a whole bunch of birds who were actually part of the cull. Think about that. Think about that. And that's not conspiracy. It's not crazy. These are normal questions people should ask. I know America will ask these questions. That's why I've tagged Donald J. Trump, CIA, and Homeland Security in this part too. It's brutal. And it's funny. Look, not one skip of a beat in my video today. Why? Oh, because now the internet's restored. It's all okay. They were trying to get away with it. Somebody made a stink. Now it's returned. But you watch my part one. Look at my video hammered over and over and over again. I'm still on the same system, same bars, same everything. Why is everything good now, not so good yesterday? Because yesterday there was an attempt to remove all that. And now the Canadian Food and Inspection Agency has to re-release all that data, has to have those transcripts public. Even though they seized it all, they have to make that public. They have to be transparent, at least in the laws in Canada right now. But laws can change like a lot of other scenarios. Just like the G7 China radar created in 2018 by President Donald J. Trump in his first term and the Trump administration, to monitor all of the G7 countries, which includes Canada, for all of their trade back and forth and investment back and forth with China. All of them. Canada used to publish that and was very transparent about that up until 2017. Well, guess who took over monitoring it? Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States, and rightfully so. See, America's learned that Canada can be transparent on things until it doesn't work in their favor. And then, snap of a finger, Prime Minister through Governor General can end all of that arbitrarily and autocratically. And parliaments will see that done. The legislative branch will capitulate, and they will do that. And they will order organizations like Statistics Canada that you will no longer publicly transmit this data. It's there, but you won't publish it transparently anymore. That's what they do. And it can be done. And people think it's not about manipulating stats, it's about erasing stats and analysis. It's about locking away results of data or data itself. And that's what the Canadian government, snap of a finger, can do on anything. Just like changing laws, cranking out emergencies, taking away and giving you rights and taking them away whenever they want. Snap of a finger. Doesn't matter federally or provincially in this country. That's what happens. And we see it. We see it. Folks, it's an important video. It looks like my X space today won't have all that because although I screenshotted the change, I give you the first round, which is on my timeline. You can find it September 24th. Then, as of last night, what AI was capable of seeing, which none of that was there anymore. And AI responded accordingly that, I'm sorry, I have no sources. You had the sources 4 months ago, and I screenshotted it, thank God, published it for all Canadians, thank God. So it's real. And now today, this morning, it's all restored. Almost all restored. 2021 and prior, there's limited data. You now don't get full transparency. You have to apply through biosecurity forms in the province of British Columbia to get that data. Because it's very limited. They have some, but they can't share it publicly right now. Yeah. What does that tell you? What was is not now, and I wish a lot of that I had deep dived in more. I thought the publications completely as they were, and there's more on my timelines I didn't put out, but I have to go through all my screenshots, go back to that time period. At least I have a timestamp. September 24th really helps, but I could bring all that back and show you what AI that's publicly available, which is not now today, and certainly none of it as of last night, but now this morning, all restored almost. But again, what's critical here is the start of COVID into the human population, a massive pandemic, scamdemic, I still believe that, to get government autocratic power. But where did the virus originate from? How was that done? Was it a Chinese lab? Was Canada involved in this too? Was Japan? Markers show definitely between Winnipeg and China there were activities, and we're definitely known that those birds were transmitted across from eastern Canada to that BC farm. None of them all born in the BC lab. In fact, a third almost of that population wasn't born there. They were brought in from other places, all stamped, all digitally tracked, all of it. AI will even tell you that, as I told you all last night. Now they'll tell you that today in relation to those birds. They'll even give you all the records. Again, we don't have any detailed records 2021 and prior of those birds and those that were brought to the farm. Limited. I want to know that stuff. Sure, they give the records of, in spring of 2021 to November of 2021, yes, we did all these COVID-19 experiments on the birds, even though no one in Canada was doing those experiments and the government hadn't rolled out anything. So why are you doing that? It means you were probably doing that before 2021. In fact, 2020, 2019, I want to know that data. I want to know exactly what they were doing with human coronavirus at the break of the pandemic and before the pandemic. Don't all of you? I think Canadians should know that. I think the United States should know that too. That's my video, folks. Share the update, part 2. I'm going to talk to Jonathan. As of last night, sure, I wanted to do that space if the data wasn't available to any of us, but now it's restored, so you can get at least almost all of it. And I hope people really look at that 2021 and prior, going the start of the pandemic and before the pandemic. What were they doing with these birds, messing around with human coronavirus, just like China's Wuhan bats? Is the U.S. government crazy here when they accuse China, or are they on to something serious? I just want to know. I think we all have a right to know. That's not conspiracy. That's called logic. we had this global pandemic you claimed where we were put in the hole a tremendous amount we're never going to recover from. Worldwide, really, the people will not recover from, where a lot of people got filthily stinky rich and a lot of people are now broke. Entire government foundations of the people are broke more than they ever have been in any other history. For a pandemic, I call pandemic scam demic. So where are those records? I think those are tremendously important. Why none of those tests were done, and also a call with none of the follow-up, especially in relation to COVID-19, at a time when there was no bio on animals in any setting and no rollout from the Canadian government or provincial governments, but yet this lab exists and they were doing just that in a time nobody was. It said, oh, well, that was breakthrough, that was great, and FDA approved it, or sorry, not FDA, Canada's Food and Inspection Agency approved that. We had a huge global pandemic. I think anything in relation to any studies or testing or experiments in and around before Canada got involved in it happening on Canadian soil should be thoroughly investigated. Don't all of you? That's my video. Share, share, share. Get it out there. I don't know what we're going to do for next space today. I'll talk to Jonathan. I hope I didn't reroute him now too badly and we can get back on track. I thought it was going to be a good one, very important, but they've refixed all of that. They've released it all back, which is a good thing. And I'm going to keep watching that to make sure we don't lose more data than we already have. God bless everybody. Have a good day, and I hope to see you at 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll figure out what the new space is going to be. Bye now.